Hey, Wade, how are you?
He was Air Force for a long time, so we'll see how well he is.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the January 18th, 2018 Transportation Advisory Committee meeting. Happy New Year, everybody. And I guess it's kind of a resolution that
Make sure your microphones are on, please.
kind of my resolution to start this meeting on time. So it's 1:30. Please have that noted. Looks like we definitely have a quorum. And let's begin by doing introductions. Wade, would you start, please?
Yes, Wade Burkholder, City of Manitou Springs.
Anton Radich, El Paso County. Aaron Horstmeyer, Shreveport Air Force Base.
Taylor Gert, City of Manitou Springs.
Deborah Baumgartner, USAFA.
Rick Orphan, Fort Carson. Ken Prather, PPACG.
Wendy Pettit, CDOT Region 2.
Aaron Busto, Federal Highways.
I'm going to use Aaron's microphone. Brandy Williams, City of Fountain.
Victoria Chavez, El Paso County. I'll just talk loud.
Tim Roberts, City of Colorado Springs.
Jason Donish, Town of Palmer Lake.
Brian Vituli, City of Colorado Springs, Mountain Metro Transit. And in the audience, please.
Hi, Mike Schmidt at Tomball Ventures. I'm here to support Loop Global. They're going to be speaking later.
Thank you. And staff, please.
Kevin Reyes, PPACG.
Jennifer
What?
Valentine.
Bethany Schomer.
And Mike Kozak from Shadow Mountain Air Force Station.
All right. And we see you back there. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you, everyone. Agenda approval. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Item 3, public comments for any items that are not on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, Mike, you'll hold them till later? Okay, thank you. Item 4, approval of the December 21st, 2017 TAC minutes. Are there any questions or comments with the minutes? Anyone like to make a motion? Thank you. In a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Item 5, Board of Directors report from the January board meeting, actually, right? That was last week?
The board approved Jason's representation for the town of Palmer Lake, so you're a fully voting member at this point. It also approved TIP Administrative Change 10, TIP Amendment 14, which was the cost overrun amendment, so that was approved with no change, and TIP Amendment 15, which was the US 24 rockfall mitigation project that CDOT will be starting. That was their action items. They had a discussion very similar to the ones that you had here about the potential statewide ballot issue that's being prepared and what projects could, should not be possibly identified in that ballot issue. But remember, this is not a CDOT or legislative ballot. This is a petitioning ballot that I think it's the Denver Chamber of Commerce, something similar to that, and some other entities are putting together for this coming November.
All right. Any questions for any of that? All right. Thanks, Ken. Item 6, our first and only action item, fiscal year 2019 to 2022 TIP release for public comment. Okay.
Okay. We need to approve a new TIP. The target date is to have the board approve it in April so that it's in sync with the new STIP. Also gives the CDOT, the governor, the feds time to approve it and finish conformity actions and the other actions that have to be taken as part of the final approval process. So to have that time schedule met, we need to first select the projects as a result of the call for projects to be added to the TIP. The other comment that I have already received that we need to add to the draft that's before you now is the self-certification statements that PPACG must make. We used to make it as part of our UPWP every year, but requirements have changed. It now has to be part of the TIP, so we will try to get that added to the CAC version, if not to the before we get it to the board in a couple of weeks. So the first issue is to decide what projects to be funded with the money. And remember, we're not adding any new money. We are using program money that has been unprogrammed since the TIP was approved. We have dropped off out of our 2017 to 22 TIP. We're dropping off 2017 and 2018. And starting from this TIP moving forward, we will maintain a 4-year TIP. Based on a meeting that several of us attended with Aaron and FTA this morning, this is going to be a little bit of a work in progress because we are under a requirement that TIPs and STIPs must synchronize. CDOT is doing STIPs every year. So depending on how we can work out the details and what's acceptable, one option is that we do a new TIP every year. You know, adding a year as we drop a year off to maintain a 4-year TIP. So we'll have to work out the details on that. But for right now, we will be in sync, I think, improving a 19 to 22 TIP. So that's kind of the game plan of what we're trying to attempt. And obviously, the first thing to do is to decide on what are the projects to add that as a result of the call for projects that we just had. Now, what I put together last month, I think it was last month, and emailed out to everybody, was a spreadsheet that's up on the wall that shows here's the projects, here's the scores based on from the 2040 plan. And it was a spreadsheet. You can play the what-if games if you want, that if you just go down, which is what I did, if you just start scoring from the highest scored project and put the money on that, here's how much it calculated, how much was left in the pool, and you could just go down the list until you had exhausted the money that was available. And I'm going to move over to the podium here.
We have hard copies as well. It only has one of the portfolios. If anyone wants a hard copy, I can pass them down.
Unfortunately, to be able to see the entire spreadsheet so you can kind of get the full context, it becomes so small it's unreadable. So here was the scores. Now this is the spreadsheet that was emailed out to you as part of your packet. The difference are these three cells that are highlighted in yellow in your packet. The comment here was not scored. So I went back and dug out the major thoroughfares plan update was scored for the 2040 plan. It's just that we never reported it because we never had enough planning projects to have to compete for the planning funds that were available. So that's the score from the 2040. The Charter Oak Ranch Road and the bikeway improvement projects were not scored, so I finished scoring them last night. So these are the scores for them. The other scores that are here were the approved scores from the 2040 plan. The way this is set up, there's the years 2019, 20, 21, and 22 with the funding categories that we're talking about, CMAQ, TAP, STP Metro, how much money is available in each of those years. This row summed up whatever project cost you put down here, and then that calculated the balance available. This row cannot go below zero, because when you hit zero, it means that all of the funds are programmed, there's no more money available. And then in the far right, this just summed up the cost of the project. So if you had a project that was split over 3 years, still added up the cost of the project here, or the funds that were the federal funds. This is all federal funds only. Added up the federal funds here, and then this is how much this project is short from what it's asking for. So that's the concept of the plan. I had 4 portfolios prepared. 1 and 2 were the ones that were emailed out a month ago, and it was strictly some differences in the TAP projects, because at that point, all the projects in gray we had talked about. They were funded in different categories in the plan than what people were asking for now. Part of the discussion we had was, if the project is funded under RTA, why are we spending federal funds for it now and modifying the plan to match the TIP wants or requirements? We're a little bit caught in a transition phase. I was asked how were project funds selected for the plan. We did a similar exercise like this, where we had funding categories set up. And so under TAP, and we would start with the list of 200 projects, whatever the number of projects candidates were for the 2040 plan. And we started with the TAP and said, these are the most restrictive funds. So what's the highest projects that can use those restricted funds? And then when those got exhausted, we went to Metro or CMAQ. And then when those got exhausted, we went to STP Metro. And when those got exhausted, then we had some future RTA funds available that did not have a voter-approved list of projects assigned to them. But we had a reasonable estimate that we will have a third RTA out in the future. So projects that were still left to be selected, we funded with the RTA. So that's the way the project funding, and for those of you who were here 2-3 years ago, you remember we had the mother of all horrible spreadsheets up there, and we went through that and said, okay, if you put this money on Metro, then there's this much left. Well, the next 3 projects are too big, we can't do it, so let's go down to the 4th project further down the list, and there's enough money to fund it. And we did that for all of the funding categories, and we did it for the dozen or so CDOT funding categories that they have for their projects, the rockfall mitigation, safety, and that. And so that's how we did it, and the intent was to get as many projects as possible in the plan. When we did that, we were not being held, the plan had to be fiscally constrained. Projects had to be consistent with the plan. Projects in the TIP had to be consistent with the plan. And since that time period, 2 or 3 years ago, whenever that was, the federal requirement for accountability and paying attention to detail has evolved, and they are now looking at the funding categories rather than just the plan total. So in the past, if we had a project that was funded under RTA for $1 million, and we said we want to put it in the TIP right now, under Metro, we did it, no questions asked. Now the questions are being asked, and so that's why Some of these here are identified in gray. In your packet, the city has asked, why can't we go ahead and fund them anyway and amend the plan? So this portfolio, remove the gray, and I think all the projects are still listed in the same order as what are in the other portfolios. You can see which projects were funded. This is with future RTA. Now they're asking for Metro. These were funded with CMAC, now asking for TAP. RTA projects asking for CMAC or TAP. So the task before us today now is to decide what we're going to do, and for all of these projects that are requesting funds, there's not enough money. So who gets their project funded, partially funded, left over for the next time? And like I say, the order and the only justification for this sequence here is that they are in descending order by score, except for this one that's down here that's out of place because it was late last night and I just didn't bother moving it. So the spreadsheet is the same as what you saw in your packet, except for those three highlights and the scores there.
Brian? Ken, first of all, thank you for addressing our comments and developing the portfolios 3 and 4. Does this portfolio 4 meet the FHWA requirements then? Keeping the long-range plan intact and following
No.
the rules?
No, well, at this point, it's still funded based on, no, I think it is. It is. So this first one, Dublin Road, see, that's funded with Metro funds. Yeah, so this one is using what's been requested. It will require a plan amendment.
It would require a plan amendment
Yes,
because of the change in funding source,
yes.
even though it's in the long-range plan.
It's in the long-range plan, but it's in the long-range plan for RTA. No federal funds. Now we're asking for federal funds. So for federal funds to become available, then we have to reflect federal funds being taken off some other project in the plan.
Okay. And using this portfolio 4, almost everything gets funded, requiring a plan amendment, except for like our request for TAP funds to be from CMAC funds.
Yeah, the ones where there's no comment here. So these were TAP funds requesting TAP funds.
Mm-hmm.
This is Metro requesting Metro. These were differences. 30th Street. This is a little bit of a unique one. Tim and I have had some discussions about this. This project is already in the TIP. In the plan, it says intersection improvements as part of the scope. Going through their public process, their NEPA process stuff, that has evolved that one of the intersection improvements is a roundabout. The roundabout cost more money than in the original estimate. So this is not a true cost overrun in the sense of what we talked about in developing our cost overrun policy last year. It's a revised cost, and so they're asking for this much more, but it's already in the plan and in the TIP as Metro dollars. These two projects are in the plan as CMAC projects. Now they're asking for TAP. I put them over here under CMAC. They could both be funded under CMAC. No plan amendment required. I could not find the match for this project in the plan. There's a couple that are very similar, but they're on different locations, and therefore I interpreted them to be different projects. But this is the one that was asking for almost 100% of the CMAQ funds, but if that one's not funded, then these two could be.
I guess, speaking for the city, right off the bat, we could drop the advanced detection. You know, that's, and fund the metro projects through CMAQ. I think that's an easy, for this group and for the part of the discussion and resolving the issues, I think that's an easy one for us to
Sure.
to
Yeah, and,
address.
Speaking from the other side of the city and the other side of the room, that's something that I just missed when I sought funds for these two bus stop accessibility projects. Normally, we use TAP. I just totally glossed over the how we put them into the plan as CMAQ projects. So that's my fault, but yeah, I'm
So you
totally,
want to go
totally
ahead
happy
and,
keeping them in this, under the CMAQ pot.
okay?
And to be fair too, it was not specified in the instructions that we couldn't swap funding as we've always done in the
Right.
past. And it's never been an issue. I would like to know or have some documentation of what that regulation is so that we can fully read it and understand it, because I felt really bad for the city that your projects got pulled just because there was an unknown rule. So,
This is where the transition caught up to us after we submitted the call for projects with all of the instructions.
I still need to have that regulation though, so I can read it and fully understand it.
It'd be nice to.
I just have a question. So when you're looking at where the projects came from, is that their original application or the way that they were, if they came out of the tip, where they're programmed in the tip?
What you see up here is the way they are programmed in the plan.
Okay, so that came out of their original
Rig-
application.
No,
Maybe, maybe not.
maybe not, but it was what was approved in the plan,
Okay.
based on the way we developed the plan the last time. This next time around, now that we have to pay attention to funding categories, it's going to be a different process, where if people ask for Metro monies, we will promise them Metro monies, and we won't put their project in the plan if it doesn't make Metro. It won't get funded under some other category. That might be a result. So it'll be a game changer.
And honestly, it should be. If you look, there's some projects in the long-range plan where we have 3 or 4 duplication of locations, you know, and I think we went in, well, from the last plan, I know that we didn't pay a lot of attention to how the projects were funded. As long as they were in there and we trusted staff on, you know, we said, we really trusted staff on how to do it, knowing that there'd be, assuming there'd be flexibility as we went through the tip, as there had been before. So in good faith, I mean, I think there was no fault in anybody other than, hey, this is a practice that we've always done before. We appreciated PPACG staff trying to get everything funded because, you know, that's the goal for everybody, really. So I don't think there's, you know, pointing fingers at anybody or anything like that. It was all done in good faith. Now this is a hiccup of, hey, we have to follow these specific funding sources, and I agree with Victoria. I'd like to see where that mandate is, because it affected our applications for sure. And if there's a way we can negotiate or not navigate through this process to resolve, you know, the issues and make sure that we do try to work together to fund the most amount of projects for the region, I think that would be a benefit for all of us.
Agreed.
Yeah, the world has changed around us, and we're caught in the transition. Our discussion last month, and maybe it was me leading the way, and you don't agree. I don't, you know, we've had the discussion about the tip leading the plan, and so I was trying to not to amend the plan to reflect new projects, and I honestly had not thought about the issue of swapping funds, because it had never been an issue before. But once this came out, and it was identified to us that we now have to worry about fiscal constraint at the funding category level, not at the total plan level, we can still amend the plan. And I don't like that, but maybe that's what we have to do, because we're caught in this transition from the way we did it last time, where the emphasis was getting every plan in the project, every project in the plan that we could, and the way we do it next time, next year, where it's going to be a different methodology to figure out which projects are funded under what category.
In this case, Ken, the plan amendment isn't actually dropping projects, though, or because the fund's there.
No, it's just changing the funding.
Yeah, it's changing funding source because the money's there otherwise. So
Mhm.
it's still fiscally constrained, even with our proposals, changing funding category.
Yeah, it's just an administrative, it still requires a plan amendment.
And that's what I want to make sure. Are you sure it requires a plan amendment? I think that's where Victoria's coming from. Is where's that? You said you've been directed to kind of consider that. Is that?
That came from FHWA. And so if we show a project in the plan and say it's funded with RTA funds, and now it shows up in the tip, not funded by RTA funds, then there's a disconnect. And the two documents are supposed to be consistent.
Right. And is FHWA's concern more of it being fiscally constrained, or is it being a consistent funding source?
Both.
Both.
And I'm taking notes. I can fulfill the request for documentation of regulations and guidance that guides us this way. That's something I can do. I would ask, is there a specific time you need this? Because I don't want to take a month and then I don't get you an answer because I didn't know.
I don't have a
As soon as
specific
possible?
time frame that I need it in, but,
Okay.
just as we go forward and we develop a new plan, I think what we're going to have to do is amend the long-range plan at this point. But I want to understand as we go forward into our next plan that I know what the rules are. So, when you can get it to us would be nice. Unless somebody else has a different timing requirement.
No, as long as, we're sure this is the way we have to do it. I mean, if there was some question as to whether the language says that we should do it this way or not, then, we would need that answer before the,
If we're going to stay on schedule, we need the answer today.
yeah.
Well,
Well, and then there's the public comment.
we're putting out for public comment, so there are things that could come back during the public comment period. The question would be, we
To work with Ken to get him the information that we all need in the time frame he needs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, work with Ken.
Yeah.
So like by tomorrow or something.
That's what I was thinking.
or the next couple of
Or
weeks.
4 hours or 2 hours by 4 o'clock.
Do you need to go home tonight?
Well, we would, unless we're contemplating another meeting to change our recommendations from today, then, you could have a couple of weeks and we would have that information available during the public comment period and can review it and consider making any revisions in that at our March meeting. But if we delay it today, we're not going to meet our timeline.
And you won't have a tip
Let's
on July 1st.
Yeah,
let's not delay it. We already know that we can make this CMAQ change and fix that. I think I have a strong opinion about 30th Street, that it's in the tip, and it's not a change in funding source. And in fact, through your tip guidelines, there's this comment that says responsibilities of project sponsor agencies and MPO. And one of our responsibilities is offering opportunities for project level public involvement. And the roundabout's coming out straight from that public involvement. So it's not really a new project. I think the PPRTA Dublin widening project is one that I can, if we're following the federal guidelines, then yeah, I understand that. So if that's one that we need to reconsider, I think we're okay with that. And then everything else seems to follow federal guidelines, right?
So you're talking skipping over this one?
Yep, because of the federal requirements, not meeting the,
Okay, so this one is Metro for Metro, tap for tap. I think at this point,
which one is that? I'm blind
I
here.
don't think there's any money for this one already.
So that one I wanted to bring up. We've been talking about when we're submitting projects, having design in advance of construction. And that's what we're trying to do with this North Nevada project, is design in advance of construction. And there is a 2040 project, North Nevada, Lilac Street to I-25, and this is that project. This is a segment of that project. So if we have a MPO policy of wanting to do design before asking for funds, this falls right in line with that process.
It would if we had that policy.
But I don't understand why it's not in the plan. I mean, that was one of the arguments.
Because there's no money. At this point, these two projects eat up all of the Metro money first.
I see what you're saying. But even without, but if we take out the Dublin,
So you want me to take out Dublin?
I want you to
Officially?
officially take out Dublin.
Okay. We'll take this out. Then. All right. So now, STP Metro has available in 2021, it's got 1.7?
782, yeah.
So the project's getting the money right now. I think that's the Charter Oak Ranch Road and 30th Street.
And that's it?
That's it. So if you wanted to North Nevada's 800,000. You want to put that out here, that's equal 800 times 1.256. So that's a inflated cost of $1 million for 4,000. There's now 777,000 left over. Charter Oak Ranch Road wanted 3.1 million. Right now it's only got 1.5. You could add another 700,000, make that a $2.2 million funding, and that would wipe out Metro dollars. It would not, obviously not fund the full request for Charter Oak Ranch Road.
And that's the North Nevada study?
That's under this scenario now, it's funding 30th Street and North Nevada. Both of those fully funded.
And Charter Oak is partially funded?
And Charter Oak Ranch Road,
So if you take out North Nevada, then you're only funding Charter Oak and
30th Street.
30th? What about all the other fountain projects?
Let me thank Tim for, again, looking at this as a regional perspective and having some cooperation among projects. That's huge for us. We did the same thing in the last tip, so in that spirit of cooperation, we would be willing to remove our Charter Oak Regional Trail project so that that TAP money could go to Fountain's segment of the same trail.
so this one,
Yes,
you withdraw that one?
we can withdraw that one.
apply for that one in the region tap process?
Yep. So we will wait for that next process. I think it's coming next year or the year after.
So Colorado
It's one of
Springs.
those.
Yeah, it should be sometime late next year, I think.
Okay.
All right, so then this project, whatever that works out to be, since that's scattered over a couple of years, and the way I did it in figuring out the inflation cost, I'm assuming that you would write one contract, and so the contract would be written the first year, and so that's the year that I calculated the inflation out to. I didn't calculate inflation out to the third year if it was a 3-year project. I assumed that you wrote your contract in the first year. I realize in the real world, whoever your ABC construction company is going to figure their costs out for 3 years, and they're going to, but for this exercise here, I've only inflated out to the first year of a multi-year project.
Aaron,
So
did you
if
still
you
have
put
a
in-
question? Hold on a second. Aaron, did you have a question?
Unless he fixed it, but he put the $1 million on the wrong project that we just talked about. That's one line up from where it should be.
Further to the right?
Good eye across the very long spreadsheet.
30th Street?
No, North Nevada.
Scroll to the right.
Yeah, it does need some money, but we'll take it.
So that should be,
That needs to be our 1.5 to fully fund Charter Oak. So it was the North Nevada, or the Nevada one, plus the extra 700 and whatever to get us to the 1.5.
yeah, but you're saying that this is in the,
Yeah.
That should go
remove
above
that-
it.
Remove that $1 million from that cell.
Yeah, just delete
Okay.
that
Just delete it.
and put it,
up there.
No, you want that 1.2
No,
there.
you want to add it to that. Control Z. There you go.
Because you need the 1.2 though. Okay, so you got that.
this money,
That's the
this
roundabout.
project is fully funded with that money right there.
Okay.
We're not touching that project.
So take it out of, take the $1 million out of the one below the 1.2 million.
The Fountain Creek Regional Trail.
Right, because we're not funding that one now. We're going to withdraw that.
Okay. So that disappears,
And it can go.
and it should go to North Nevada?
No, it's going to
No.
go to Charter Oak.
Goes to Charter Oak.
And we'll ask, we'll request that we figure out how to get the full 1.596371 so that we can have a fully funded Charter Oak project.
So scroll down now from that point.
So you're taking North Nevada off entirely, Tim?
I thought you wanted the Nevada study in here, Tim.
No, it's important for us to think regionally.
Okay. Then that means Charter Oak Ranch Road is asking for, where is it?
It's
It's the 3.140, right there. Yep.
Asking for 2.5. So this becomes equals 1.256 times 2,500.
Yes, you got it.
And they're still, and that fully funds your request,
Thank you.
and that still leaves 186,000
All right.
in Metro funds available.
How short is Fountain on their trail in TAP? Can we, since we're going to have to amend the plan one way or the other, can we give the Fountain's Fountain Creek Trail the excess STP Metro money?
Actually, we're trying to avoid an amendment.
Well, we're trying to, but I think we've agreed that if necessary, we'll do it.
I don't think we
Okay.
can, because right now Charter Oak in the plan is funded with 10 million a DAR, and it doesn't have 10 million a DAR.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we're stuck one way or the
But
other.
right now, there's,
So Brandy could get the 5,
right now, what's that
7,
sum down there say?
that 126,718? Or, oh, way down,
Way down there.
I can't read that.
I can't either.
Anton, go stand up there and read that.
These eyes.
781,478. So that's what's available in TAP.
Thank you, Anton, very much.
So that's what's available for TAP starting in 2019.
So if we put all of that,
So Fountain through downtown.
yes,
So that's going to be equal to that request times, this is 1,128. All right, so
go, just give her the 126,718 in that year, since that's all that's available.
there's only 478. I'm rather than figuring out, this is what she would get for the total.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's what,
Does that,
and that's what she's asking for.
is that what you need? Okay. So, but how much TAP do we have available? Because I don't think we have enough TAP to give her 900.
Well, we go back here, what was that?
Yeah, there's only-
700 and something, wasn't it?
Total TAP through all those 4 years is 806,640.
Okay, and she's asking for 973.
Right, so if we take the difference between the 973 and the 806, can we backfill it with the leftover STP Metro money? So that she can have a fully funded project?
Where'd we go with Metro?
You've got 5,727 in 19.
We got 186,000, so,
Well, and then in 19, you've got 5,727, so you could start with that.
so that would make up the difference.
So that she could then have a fully funded project. And I will highlight, if there are DAR money, hint, hint, Rick, if our DAR money actually comes through, we will be returning these funds.
Okay, so these two projects to be funded by CMAC. City has withdrawn Dublin. We will fund 30th Street as requested. Fountain Creek Regional Trail has been withdrawn. That's through Area 16. North Nevada Corridor
Withdrawn.
is
Withdrawn.
withdrawn. Okay, I don't have that highlighted. Fountain Creek Regional Trail through downtown will be funded with available TAP funds and available leftover Metro funds to be fully funded, or I think that does get it fully funded. Do we have anybody from Woodland Park here today? Ben?
Ben said he sent you an email. Did you get that email?
I did not get an email. I did have a phone call with him that he wanted to know what it would take to withdraw the project. And did we get something in writing? Okay.
Well, he said he sent you an email withdrawing the project.
I said that's what would all be necessary. I just talked to him a couple days ago. But
Okay.
he was indicating that it would cost way more than what he's got requested here. But I don't, you're taking my word for it. I don't have anything in writing.
Okay, well, I'll tell him to get you something in writing.
Yeah.
Well, given we think that that will be withdrawn, let's.
So that would be withdrawn, so the only all the TAP funds would go to the Fountain Creek Regional Trail through Fountain.
And we wouldn't be leaving Woodland Park out either.
Charter Oak Ranch Road is now, I think we got it fully funded. well, your request is fully funded. Remember, these are only federal dollars, so whatever you said was the total cost of the project, I will subtract out the federal dollars, and you're responsible for all of the local dollars. Major thoroughfares plan update. At this point, looks like that has fallen off
We can live with that.
okay?
Are there any
And the
monies
city's citywide bikeway project is not going to make it.
Are there any monies left on the table anywhere?
No.
We
Well, there's 5,000 in 2019. Because we're using these TAP funds on Fountain Creek, we're using the STP Metro.
Well, I will ask you to go back and just double check.
Well,
that,
there's
'cause
still,
I was going to say, from my calculations, there's still a good chunk of money on the table.
yeah, it looks like there's still 439. Yeah, we haven't touched 2022 yet. There's 439 out there.
Isn't that the year you asked for your corridor update?
It is, but you know what I would kind of like to do to help out Mountain Metro a little bit? If in fact those CMAQ funds don't come through and we don't have them in 2020, they could utilize those leftover STP monies for one of their projects. And if they do come through, we can use that 2021 money for cost overruns and things that may happen in the future.
Just kind of leave it on the table?
I think
Sure.
maybe leave it
All right.
on the table for this moment.
Thank you. All right, sure.
Okay, so we'll leave
But yeah, double check your totals, because I'm showing.
439.
Yeah, I'm showing a little bit more on, but so just double check your totals before it comes out
Okay,
for public comment.
thank you. Brandy has an email from Ben Sheets at Woodland Park announcing his withdrawal of their American Discovery Trail project. Thank you, Brandy.
And, it may not matter, but the Route 6 project, the second one under CMAQ, since we got the TIP Amendment 14 with the cost overrun dollar that was approved by the board last week, I think we're good on that project, so we can just withdraw that.
You want to withdraw it
Sure.
anyway?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
Thank
that
you.
leaves 415,000 of CMAQ funds maybe on the table.
Let's go with this. Let's just.
That's still
Yeah.
way up in the air in terms of our redesignation as an attainment area, and may or may not exist when we get to that point. So that'll be on the table, and 439,000 out in 2022 will be on the table. And I'll see how many dollars and pennies
Yeah.
shake up out of here based on what we've already agreed to fund.
All right, I'm going to throw it out there. I'm going to make the motion that we submit this for public comment as we've amended it.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Is there any discussion?
So you're
Recommending you release this for public comment as we've amended it here
okay,
today.
so
With the
Portfolio
withdrawal.
4. Portfolio 4
portfolio 4 as amended.
as amended. Yeah.
Portfolio 4, yes. And I got a question. So,
Hold on, Tim. Wendy, go ahead.
I just want to make sure that we say this, this is all still subject to the new resource or program distribution. So the dollars could change, not by a lot, but there could be some change that happens with the funding pool amounts as we move forward, once that document comes out here soon. So just FYI, what you think is fully funded today may not be completely.
Will we know that through the public comment period?
We will not.
We won't not. Okay, we're just going to have to deal with that
Yes,
later then.
when it happens, exactly.
Thank you for the
That's the
heads up,
point
though.
that I
Yeah.
wanted to make.
In a way, we've always lived with this in the past because of annual differences in federal dollars that are obligated. Sometimes the Fed stepped in and said, we're not obligating your full amount that's coming to the state. CDOT ate that up and never passed that dollar loss on to us, unless they got to the end of the year or something and were forced to. But they're not in a position anymore to react to that kind of a thing. And so now, on an annual basis, as we're moving forward, just within our own statewide resource allocation, obviously it's subject to change, so.
So if that's the
Last year,
case and that happens, that would be tip amendment
We had
number
like
one,
an
right?
$85 difference.
Yeah.
So last year it was minimal, it was like $85, and we fixed that. So I'm just saying that you never know what the full look will be, so.
Okay. Tim, did you have a comment?
Yes, I do. A couple of comments and a question. Are we sure we need a long-range plan amendment with this, because Charter Oaks is identified using Metro funds in the long-range plan? If you look on the,
It does have some Metro funds in there.
it
yes.
does, so
Oh,
Yes.
and it just
Char-
has a
Char- Charter
comma,
Oaks
it
is-
doesn't have a
it doesn't have a number.
Oh, we might not need a plan
So-
amendment then.
So I'm thinking that we don't need a long-range plan amendment with this.
Okay, so you got Metro for Metro here. North Nevada is
Is out.
out.
Tap for
Fountain
tap,
through downtown is tap for tap.
Metro for Metro. And CMAX. for
Charter Oak
CMAX.
is right, CMAX, CMAX. No
That-
plan amendment required.
What wonderful
Okay.
collaboration we've done.
So I thought, that's when I was looking at it, I thought we had
Good
Metro in
catch.
Charter Oak, so,
Yes, it's got three funding categories in it.
yeah.
Right, oh, okay.
So
Neat.
I wanted to thank everybody for working with the city and working together.
Yep.
I think this group has a really good history of being collaborative, and thanks a lot. And
And I will save that before I lose it.
I think, we're still in tune with the long-range plan. I think we've done good here.
Yes, wholly agreed and seconded.
Yep. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Lovely.
Good job, Ken. And Kevin, Jennifer, Bethany.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, staff.
E?
All right, item number 7.
You need,
We have one
Flash
more
drive.
discussion item here. Fiscal year 2017 to 2022,
okay, I can stick
budget
it
cost overruns.
up there for you.
Ken, you got
We
one
have
more
another item here
before
first.
Kevin, you doing this one?
Sure.
Sure. That's why I asked him to show up.
I was going to ask that question to make it really short an item then.
Welcome back, Kevin.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Are you here because the snow's not too good in the mountains?
Snow is not too good. Yeah, it's part of the reason. Absolutely. Unfortunately, this is apparently this is the most snow they've ever had to make.
Saw an article, skiing's down 13%.
Yeah. Kevin Reyes, transportation planner here with PPACG. So this is the time of the quarter where we announced that we are addressing cost overruns again. We just went through that process and got TIP amendment number 14 approved by the board last month. And so we're going to go ahead and start that process again. I spoke with Wendy from CDOT, and there are no additional funds available for this quarter, but we can address any scope changes if any project sponsors want to change the scope of a project. So all I ask is that if you do have any scope changes, please submit those to me by the end of the month, and we'll get those processed for next month. But unfortunately, again, we don't have any additional funds for cost overruns. Any questions on that?
All right.
Perfect.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Item number 8 is our only information item. That's a presentation on the Hyperloop Technology.
I'm going to introduce Dee Worthington from Loop Global, and he's going to talk to you about his company's concept of Hyperloop travel, and I think you'll find it very interesting.
Thank you for the introduction, Ken. I'm going to change this real quick. We actually have some updates that I'd like to share. I'm a Mac guy. Can anybody help me? That's not going to help. This, yeah, here we go. Yeah. Should be up here, maybe.
Yeah, under computer, yeah.
Right there.
There you go.
Yep.
You're on your own from there, though.
It's usually titled Loop. Would it just show up on the on the desktop? No, of course not. Ah, man. PCs. Yeah, I believe Ken plugged it in.
Yeah, I stuck it in.
It should be Loop_D Word.
Do a search for
Do you want
it
to try the other one?
Ah, I wasn't quite in.
Famous.
All right. Here we go. Okay. Thank you for giving me a few minutes here to present some of the ideas and traction that we have here in the Colorado scene. It actually extends Colorado, so we'll call it the Front Range. My name is Dee Worthington. I'm the CEO and founder of Loop Global. We've been working on removing the friction and bringing the world closer together for, I've been on this journey for almost 10 years now. So although the Hyperloop idea was released by Elon at some point in 2013, I've been working on it a little longer than that. So that paints just a little bit of context. We are one of 6 companies globally that is working towards commercializing this new form of transportation. I'll get into some differences and advantages here shortly, but one thing that Tim had mentioned right there at the end is collaboration. And this is something that drives us to the core. We are a community-focused organization that wants to make sure that we are providing as much impact and wins for every municipality and community landowner, both public and private, with the vision that we are working towards. So with that, we will move into a quick presentation. I won't take up too much time because I want to allow questions and answers. So transportation as we know it right now is awful, right? Who has sat in the I-25 parking lot lately? Okay, great. Collectively in America, this cost us 5.5 billion hours. That is 5.5 billion hours of productive time that is stolen from us every year due to the inability for our current transportation systems, mainly highways, to move us from point A to point B in an effective and efficient manner. Pollution, of course, is a big deal. 24% of all of the greenhouse gases, no matter what your stance is on this topic. That is a large amount of pollution that is being distributed into our ecosystem and biosphere annually. Almost a quarter of it is from transportation. Accidents. I believe that last year Colorado had 590, 600 people that died on our roads. That is way too many, in my opinion. It's not just the people, right? These aren't just numbers. These are families that are being torn apart. These are sons and daughters that are losing their moms or dads, right? This is a big deal. So what we have designed is something that eliminates a lot of the chaos, confusion, and unpredictability in transportation while providing something that is both fast, efficient, and affordable. So we move people, cargo, utilities, and parcels in space-like conditions that are housed within a network of tubes. So think about a car that you are sitting in, either a 2x2x2 or 4 people facing each other. There's a lot of different configurations that we're conceptualizing right now, but this is essentially a car-like experience where a couple taps of your thumb on a phone would allow you to get from Colorado Springs or anywhere in this region to Denver in about 10 or 15 minutes for about $5 or $10. That's what we're working towards. These are some pretty pictures. This is kind of what it would look like, at least initially and without any of our design intellectual property. As you can see, it's a very relaxed seating position. It's something that would mimic a lazy boy. So keep that in mind. It's very nice, very gradual acceleration, of course. Yes, sir?
Level 5 autonomy.
Yeah, level 5 autonomy is what everybody's chasing right now. It's fully autonomous, so there's absolutely no interaction from a human needed. And it can control itself from point A all the way to the desired destination.
Okay, thank you.
Right now, Google, Nutonomy, and some of the other leaders in that space are around level 3. Tesla's around a level 2. They have to navigate a very complex and chaos environment where we're operating in a closed tube. So what this solution is built on is actually very simple, right? People want to look at this and say, oh, this is very complicated. No, no, no. Our competitors are very complicated. We utilize very simple, natural phenomenon in order to bring this to reality. So we're looking at an optimized size. We have put a lot of time and effort into optimizing the size. This has direct cost implications along with a few other things. The maglev system that we use is much different from anything that has been seen in the market before. So if you think about the maglev trains over in Japan or the one that's being discussed in the Eastern Corridor, much different. This is a completely passive system. It has no moving parts and doesn't take any external energy to maintain the levitation. These are big points that have a lot of impacts. Safety is the number one impact that this design has. And then networkability. If you get in your car, you have the ability to go anywhere that the road leads. We capture that design philosophy and replicate that in our system as well. So it's A to any destination in the system as opposed to just A or B like a high-speed rail or something like that. This is kind of what it looks like. This is kind of how it works. The levitation system is the green and black and blue that you see exploded on the top and bottom of the capsule. And then that's our maglev system, right? And then that follows a PMG, permanent magnet guideway, that's also at noon and 6 inside the tube. Again, this is very simple compared to some of the other technologies that are being proposed in this space. The beauty of our design is in its simplicity. Then, of course, there's linear electric motors. The pylons hold on the tubes. Tubes can be deployed either above or below ground. For a customizable experience, we have looked into augmented windows as well as an augmented kind of moonroof situation. This will alleviate some of the common objections of claustrophobia. How many people feel claustrophobic in their cars? It's pretty much the same design space, and then even bigger, really, because we can you can choose a very customizable experience, whether it's the landscape that you're passing in real time, or if it's maybe in space, maybe you want to be located at your office. You'll be able to choose from a wide variety of interior situations. So how do we compare against our extremely media-hyped competition? At a high level, we're about half the size, a fifth of the cost, with 5 times the top design speed and over 10 times the hourly capacity. To boil it all down, more for less. We're looking at a fully optimized system that has been about 20 years in development versus something that was theorized and thrown into a white paper in the course of about 4 or 5 months. So we believe that not only the technology is substantially different, but our community-centric ideas and integration is also something that is missing from our competitors. And I can go into more detail, but I want to keep moving here. The competitive advantages here, and I think that this slide is on the handouts that you guys had. I'm not sure if anybody's really had a lot of time to go through that, as everybody's really busy, and I understand. Really, the big points here are on-demand access, high-speed interchange. which is the patented system that I had briefly discussed before, and then safer than cars. And that's a huge win for everybody, I believe, as well as faster, and operationally for the user, it will be about half the cost. So there has been some major movements in our industry. There's a group of state DOTs that got together. It seems that Colorado is really leading the pack in this. It makes me very proud. Where a coalition is potentially going to be formed in order to drive the standards, safety, security, and regulations conversations forward. Of course, the infrastructure bill is a hot topic right now in D.C. Some of my colleagues up there have some good news on that. And then we expect to see multiple systems in the market by multiple companies in 2020, 2021, and that will drive a standards conversation, safety regulation conversation forward. Hopefully, in the years of 22 to 25, we can, as an industry, reach that and begin to really scale and make bigger impacts, not just connecting Colorado Springs to Denver, but think about connecting New York to LA, or think about connecting New York all the way to Shenzhen, China, which is something that our technology is uniquely positioned to do. So, company timeline again, I've been in this since about 2010. Sure.
Which one of those 7 are in the coalition? Or which 7 of those are in the coalition? Like, who's not part of the coalition there?
I don't have that update yet. I'll let you know when I know. Okay. My expectation is that the value that a transportation system like this, another option to the diverse and intermodal ecosystem in transportation, is that everybody's going to recognize the value, and most of, if not all of those states are going to move forward with this. It's more or less the consensus that I've been able to gather through the multiple state DOTs I'm in conversations with. Great question, though. Officially launched in 14, we demonstrated our maglev system at full scale in 15. Proof of concept is what we're about 60% of the way done with right now. We'll be potentially unveiling that. Might stay in stealth mode a little bit longer. Again, we're not focused on media. We're more focused in reaching out to the community and leadership in communities, making sure that this is a big win for everybody. And the design of this system is very flexible, so we can accommodate a lot of things. Touching on the point that Brandy, you brought up, is that we are actively looking to pay both municipalities and private landowners for the right-of-way that we would use. So that would help potentially fund some of these things coming up on the long-range plan, TIPs, DIPs type agenda items. And then we're also looking at a per-mile tax for users that would, again, kind of help to move the funding of transportation initiatives forward. Something that we want to do and is really core to us is being able to distribute some of the value that has been collectively brought by the public and private realms. It's very important to us. This is our core team. Now, you may look up here and not see an Elon Musk or a Richard Branson, but these individuals are those characters in the making. Alex Curry is a savant when it comes to cinematography and telling our story. Of course, we haven't released much yet, but we will. Dustin came out of CU Boulder. The kid is a genius. He makes me feel like an idiot sometimes. And then Daryl Oster is the inventor, and his son, Brad, is our hardware developer. Each of those individuals are incredibly intelligent and forward-thinking, which leads our unprecedented industry knowledge and bleeding-edge IP strategy. Collectively, we all do that. And then our recruiting is from some of the top companies in the world, as you can see. We have a very unique and eclectic group of advisors. I don't want to get into these individuals because I think that some of the logos and titles stand for themselves. But what we are actively working on with the bottom two, Savion and Mitch, is the urban design and integration, so that it fits with the municipality or wherever we end up deploying these systems. It fits with that culture and theme. So it's not going to be like these ugly tubes in the sky. It's going to be something that's integrated with a very deep respect for the ecological preservation and inclusion into the design. A lot of current partners, a lot of partners that we're working on relationships with. I think that Colorado Springs has really led the early traction that we've had. It has been amazing to have the letter of support that came from everyone in Colorado Springs, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm not sure if anybody here signed it, but a lot of people did, and it really kind of catalyzed and kick-started this whole thing here in the Front Range, so it's very, very exciting. Most recent update is we received a letter of intent from CDOT through the RoadX program, Peter Kaczynski and his group. What we're going to work on is outlining a public-private partnership, potentially, and access to right-of-way. So this is the same kind of paperwork that, again, some of these media-saturated companies have. So it's a good position for us. And then we have buy-in from Pueblo. I'm meeting with Fort Collins, Cheyenne here in the next couple of weeks, along with DRCOG and NFR MPO. I'm sure everybody's aware of what all those letters stand for. I was not the first time. Another thing that I want to touch on is that we have been incredibly focused on sourcing local components, local materials, developing relationships with companies that are either from Colorado or have a big presence in Colorado. Local economic inclusion, again, kind of rolls into this community-centric type theme. And we want to make sure that that is replicated nationwide and eventually worldwide. I believe that Colorado is really the epicenter for this, and we can be a shining light for the world in bringing vision together. So we start off, this is what we call phase one. Now, again, that might not look all that fancy or impressive, but it kind of is, right? That is levitating. There's no external energy, as you can see. It's completely passive, and those are just permanent magnets that it's levitating. And I don't want to bore you with all the magic that goes on there, but it's pretty incredible. This is where we're at right now. This picture was taken a handful of months ago. Again, we're in stealth mode, so we don't really talk about what we're doing. We just get stuff done. This is going to be a full-scale, fully operational proof of concept. It's not going to go very far. It's not going to go very fast, but what it will do is prove all of the core subsystems working in synchronicity to levitate the world's first passenger. We are a human-centric company. People are and always will be the focus of our services. So we are currently focused on safely transporting the world's first human. Again, not going to go very far, not going to go very fast, but it's going to be epic. And if you guys want to come up to the event that this happens at and we show everybody, you guys are more than welcome. Just shoot me an email. Should be sometime this year. The next is a 3-mile demonstration, maybe a 5-mile demonstration. Since the momentum has begun to snowball and really avalanche here in the Front Range, we have a lot more options available for this. Originally, we were looking at potentially some right-of-way in Colorado Springs along the North Nevada area. That has been discussed with the EDC group, Bob Cope, and a couple of other players over there. Nina Vetter was involved in some of the IoT talks that we had. There's a lot of opportunity in this kind of economic development project that we're looking to bring, whether it's inside of Colorado Springs or maybe just outside of or somewhere else along the Front Range. How this all connects together, this is a slide that I shared with the FTA. They were particularly interested in this, so I decided to include it here. What this does is it ties together the efficient use of land, the cost effectiveness. So what we're talking about is half the cost of a 4-lane highway, yet over 10 times the capacity, right? And we're looking to privately fund the vast majority of this. Some of the conversations we're having with sovereign wealth funds and big pools of private capital are interested in this as well. This public-private partnership type situation. Mobility improvements, of course, connecting into all of the assets that have collectively been invested in. So bus systems, light rail systems, other forms of mass transit, as well as the car park areas. Congestion relief kind of goes without saying. We're literally taking cars off of the road. Economic development, this would be an opportunity to kind of centralize new growth, build a corridor of connectivity along the Front Range, and I think that would spur and push development east, which I think is a statewide initiative. And then in the environmental impacts, we deliver 50 times more transportation per kilowatt hour than the most efficient electric car or train. So if you see all the benefits from like a Tesla or a Leaf, take that and multiply it times 50. That's what we're able to provide.
On that slide, what did you mean by renewable energy production?
Yeah. So if the tubes are above ground, elevated probably at least 20 feet to the bottom of the bottom tube, if they're stacked vertically, we would run photovoltaic cells on the top, solar cells, solar panels, and then be able to distribute that energy not only to the system, which it would take a very small fraction of that, but also to landowners, either public or private. So the opportunity to produce, transfer, and distribute renewable energy is another core thing that we focus on. So really the approach here is transportation, communication, and energy. I think we provide some very interesting and unique solutions to all three of those large industries. Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned a higher capacity than a four-lane highway.
Yeah.
How do you determine capacity?
For highways?
Or for the system here?
In what terms?
It's like how many passengers are per hour, or?
Yeah, PPH is usually what we do, passengers per hour. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
How many passengers are you using?
So system capacity scales with design speed. Mm-hmm. So faster we run, higher capacity, obviously. So
What do you anticipate?
At 400 miles an hour, which is our base speed, we can move 260,000 people per hour.
I don't think the people can move that fast.
Yeah, that's kind of the point. So the capacity of this system is something that's incredible. It's hard to imagine what that would look like. The way that is done is through a distributed and decentralized access. So think about having multiple small stations, maybe a couple big ones, and all of those would have 3 to 100 different airlocks, and that would allow ingress and egress at a fine granularity level so that people can get out or get in easily and then get out closer to their final mile. And final mile is a great point. Thanks for kind of pushing me down this. We're working on partnering with some very interesting solutions on that too, and we look forward to announcing that and bringing that to the Front Range. So I guess what I wanted to do here was spread a little awareness, hopefully gain some support, maybe take a look at what us being included on a long-range transportation plan would look like. We're definitely not asking for any money. We don't want it, don't need it. What we are looking for is for support and potential access to right-of-way, both above and below ground. So those are where our interests are. And I'd love to continue the conversation with anybody that's interested in moving that forward. So with that, any other questions, that's cool. If not, that's pretty much all I have to say. Thanks.
Any questions for Dee? I have. Go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
Well, do you have an estimate of cost per mile above ground and below ground?
Yeah. So what we're looking above ground is for a two-tube system is anywhere between $10 and $20 million a mile. And those cost projections are based off of our current purchasing power. So we expect that to fall significantly when we are ready to deploy hundreds of miles.
And that's above ground?
Yeah, that's for above ground, yep. And then for underground, the tunneling cost, of course, is expensive. I know that there's this one guy in California that's like working on making it cheaper or something. So there's a lot of cool area for collaboration there. It's roughly triple the cost below ground, but there are a lot of advantages to deploying the system below ground, not just navigating the built environment, but also from a safety and security standpoint. And then we can have the alignments a lot straighter, both in a linear direction and in a vertical direction, so we'd be able to run higher speeds, higher capacities, so on and so forth. Yeah, that's the challenge. Yeah.
How do you keep them from flipping? Like, how do you keep
The capsules?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep that delicate balance.
Yeah, so there's a levitation system both at at noon and at 6. And the way that those superconductors are pinned in to the magnetic guideway, they're not moving anywhere. It's a natural phenomenon known as the Meissner effect. So,
You kind of have it on that one of your first.
yeah, I was going to,
Well, it's more fun with the keyboard.
if this is the superconductors, the cryostat, and this is the permanent magnet guideway, it will resist moving up, down, omnidirectional. It's pinned into its location. And that's the big advantage of this type of levitation, is it's comparatively very inexpensive, while at the same time being very robust and resilient. And it's pretty dynamic. That situation is what allows us to do our high-speed interchange, like cars operating on a highway, as opposed to like train tracks physically moving. Cool. Is that good? Okay, cool. And if you want to nerd out about this, I can too. So shoot me an email if anybody has like any like nerdy questions. I'll talk about this for hours.
I have a question, Dee.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the joint letter of support.
Yeah.
That was kind of pushing toward getting a test site. What's the status of that?
So
Nevada Avenue there.
mhm. So I think that, as I'm sure everybody in this room knows, that way was being purchased from BNSF. I'm not exactly sure where that's at. Bob Cope and the communication coming out of the EDC has been slow this year. They're super busy, and I get it, and I'm not mad at them at all because there's a lot of stuff going on. So I don't know exactly. We do have a draft development agreement that I personally sent to them via email, and have not heard back from that either. Again, not mad, so don't reciprocate that. We're all super busy, and I get it. That's just the current standing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Cool.
And one other question. You mentioned that you're looking at some, I don't know, you might have said cool alternatives for last mile connectors, going from this.
Yeah.
I mean, have you factored in our existing transportation system or our existing transit system into that?
I have. Well, my team has. I've helped with some of those discussions. So we are in conversations with Jacobs, WSP, Atkins, and who's the other one? HDR. And collectively, what we are trying to do throughout this very interesting dynamic through all of those companies, because they're usually seen as competitors, is to come up with a full-blown state feasibility study that has pretty fine granularity on it, down to the street level, where we would be able to integrate both of the systems, well, really all three of the systems that we're looking at that are overlaid and help leverage the current existing transportation modes. Because one thing that we would like to do is definitely leverage the investments that Colorado as a state and every municipality has put in. So.
Yeah, okay. Just so something laid over top that could
Yeah, so
add to it or improve it.
absolutely. So think of this not as like we're trying to replace anything. We're just bringing another option to the table. And then when we go and try to bring a layered solution, it is built off of the existing transportation options. Mm-hmm.
Right. All right, good.
Cool.
Any other questions? All right. Great. Well, thank you very
Cool.
much.
Well, thanks everybody for your time. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, item number 9, member entity announcements. Is there anything that anybody would like to share? Commissioner.
Hello, everybody. My name is Norm Stain. I'm a Teller County Commissioner and also the Chairman of the Pikes Peak Council of Governments. Elected that position just a few weeks ago, and I just want to pass on a couple things. First of all, thank you. The work that you do in the TAC is very carefully considered, I hope, by every member of the board who also sits at these same tables, and I spent a lot of time in preparation for that meeting reviewing what your work products are. So, first of all, thank you. It's hard work, and we take it seriously. Secondly, I hope that you recognize that you have a couple different avenues how to communicate to the board. First of all, of course, is the board meetings here, but I hope also that you're working with your own elected officials so that when they come to these meetings, they are primed and ready to discuss things that you have thought long and hard about. That provides some substance to our meetings, and we'll take the time necessary to get through the hard things. So on behalf of the full board, thank you very, very much. We really do appreciate the work that you do. We know that you're here voluntarily. You're not getting big extra paychecks, I guess, for that. But hopefully you know that Pikes Peak region is better off for the good work that you've done. I hope to attend meetings when I can. And I guess I've met many of you. I know many I have not met. But I want to let you know that as a commissioner, I'm always open to phone calls or emails or something we're missing. I hope I do a lot of work. I mean, Brian and I have had talks before, and Brian, of course, reports on behalf of the committee. And I hope that you know that those barriers are very low, and that the conversations are always open. So thank you again so much for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other announcements? All right. I would like to say that we're holding our public process next week for our spring 2018 service changes. So we'll be having 3 public meetings next Tuesday and Wednesday. The 2 on Tuesday, the 23rd, will be at City Hall at 9 and noon. And then 5:30 on Wednesday at the Southeast YMCA. So good stuff coming in the spring, and then more good stuff coming in the fall. So, all right. Item 10, items for future TAC meeting.
Why don't we have a tip amendment next time? The draft tip will be out for public comment, so there will be an opportunity to comment on it at that point. Hope to resurrect long-range plan project evaluation criteria and have a discussion about those.
I will also bring an information item about the small area forecast next month.
All right. Now, so the board will send this out for public comment in February.
Mm-hmm.
So
We'll do a month's public comment.
Okay.
If it starts the day after the board meeting, it'll finish 3 or 4 days before the next TAC meeting.
Okay. All right. So TAC of February TAC, right? We'll be addressing this.
I'm sorry, it'll be the March.
TAC. Yeah.
So we'll be in the middle of the public comment period in the February meeting. Okay. Then at the March meeting, that'll be 3 or 4 days after the end of the public comment period.
Okay.
You can consider any comments that we received at that point, and then make the final recommendation to the board for the April meeting.
Approval in April. Okay. All right. Thank you. Tim?
Will the new executive director be on board by then?
Executive director's first day in the office will be February 20th.
So
He's already got a house.
okay. So will he be here for us to meet?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then the proposed tip for public review, how's that going to be presented?
We're going to miss them.
Oh, we're going to miss him?
15th, so we don't see them for March.
We are working on developing that scheme. Obviously, it'll be online in a couple different formats, and a traditional open house with some posters here, and nobody shows up, and so trying to figure out how to maximize the.
But I mean, like to the CAC, will they see just our recommendation?
I will redo the spreadsheet that we worked on today and plug in all the right numbers so we see what's left and what's withdrawn, and I'll email that out to you. Hopefully this afternoon. I'm off on Friday, so if I don't get it done today, it'll come to you Monday. So you'll see that. That'll be what goes to the CAC. Is that fixed? What's been withdrawn? What's proposed for funding?
Do you feel like? Go ahead.
Monday's fine with me. I mean, it's not really. We're not going to really do anything with it if.
It shouldn't take too much to send out just that spreadsheet today.
Okay.
Do you feel like you need any?
It's 3 o'clock. I got 2 hours.
Yeah, you got all the time in the world. Do you feel like you need any TAC member support at the CAC meeting? And if they'll let us know, you don't tell us now.
Everybody's agreed, the project sponsors have all agreed to either withdraw or to accept what's there.
So one
You know,
thing,
it's,
what we're presenting at the CAG meeting is going to be a lot more simple than what we showed today. We're not going to show all the different scenarios. We're just going to show what you recommended. So hopefully that makes it a little more streamlined.
yeah, they don't need to go through, I want my project in, I want my project withdrawn. Here's what it is. So that's what they'll get.
And I'll most likely be there at the CAC meeting. Not that I'll be able to speak on your projects, but I can speak to the cooperation and working together, and that we all agreed to that, so.
Okay.
But you're always welcome to come sit by me, too. So. Okay. And, maybe to try to get more people comment on the tip during the public comment process, we could put out some press releases that says PPACG is going to fund a Hyperloop or something. That might generate some interest.
There we go.
You can write that for us.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Instead of an interstate in your backyard, we'll have
Right.
a Hyperloop.
Yeah.
Public
All right.
participation play.
But it operates silently and might pay for your mortgage.
There you go.
All right,
Lots
anything
of
else,
hooks.
anybody? All right, thank you very much. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Next meeting.
Meeting tonight. Running the one right now.